with them. Good evening, you're watching Estuary TV News. Coming up, we take some time to remember the great John Harrison in Barrow upon Humber, and the equally great Dan Kemp will bring all the sports news, and Dave Nunn will join me for the weekly newspaper review. Welcome to Estuary TV News, I'm Hugh Richards. First of all, it's over to Dan Kemp for the news headlines.
Hello there. A flood alert has been issued by the Environment Agency for the tidal Trent. Flooding is possible for the River Trent and its tributaries from Cromwell Weir north up to the Humber Estuary at the next high tide and Saturday evening's high tide. Low-lying land and roads will be affected first, and the Environment Agency are appealing for people to protect themselves, family, pets and property. Work is well underway at Grimsby's next leisure centre. Work on the new £8.4 million centre started in summer of last year and is set to be completed by the end of this year. The centre is being built next to the current centre on Cromwell Road. Councillor Mick Burnett, portfolio holder for Tourism, Leisure and Culture, said he was pleased with the progress of the work.
I think it's absolutely fantastic. And, I really enjoyed today to actually see the construction site, see the pool taking place. I've been stood in the deep end, although most people think I'm often in the deep end anyway. But I've been stood in there and therefore it's great. And the thing about today is you see parts of the pool that you won't see again once it's all finally completed, and it's really taking shape now. The new pool with the bowls just about temporary in, and then of course we've got the learning pool the other side of it. So I'm absolutely convinced that the community in North East Lincolnshire will really enjoy the pool once it's finally constructed.
A scheme which educates children about childhood obesity will continue in the East Riding. The scheme involves a theatre performance about diets and the danger of obesity. It has been specifically targeted towards younger children, who Jonathan Owen, the chairman of East Riding's Health and Wellbeing Board, says that while obesity rates aren't too high, primary school age children are most at risk of becoming obese.
The East Riding itself isn't too bad. We're just below the national average for sort of obesity at childhood level, but my concerns are that that level of obesity is doubling from when they're in sort of infant school to when they're leaving primary school. And so, it's twice the incidence of obesity at that level. And really, we're building up problems for the future and future generations in terms of type 2 diabetes, heart disease and other things that come in later age. So I think it's very keen, particularly with the sedentary lifestyle a lot of us have these days, to actually encourage children to be aware of that at a much earlier age.
Parties interested in the proposed Grimsby Town Community Stadium will have an opportunity to have their say on Sunday morning. The event at the Peaks Parkway site is to garner opinions from local stakeholders and starts at 11 a.m. And that's all for now.
My esteemed colleague Dave Nunn joins me now to review the week's regional press. Dave, welcome. What have you found?
Well, we've got lots and lots of stories this week. I mean, the first one I've picked out is people obviously having their say in the Grimsby Telegraph in response to the council tax changes and charges for the local council. We've got a rise of 1.98% in the council tax, charge for emptying garden waste between £30 and £35, and charges to use the toilets as well, which I believe are 30p.
30 pence. It should
Yeah.
be. I mean, you have to go and spend 30 pennies, as it were. That seems outrageously expensive. The charges for garden waste. I mean, surely that's what we're paying. That's having the rubbish picked up is what we're paying for in the first place. So pay extra for it.
Well, that's what most people would say, but I mean, I guess at the end of the day, emptying the normal waste and emptying garden waste is a bit different. I suppose there are different methods of disposing of it. I suppose getting rid of just sort of general plastic rubbish and wrappers are different to getting rid of trees and leaves, I guess.
I suppose organic matter is different from exactly the stuff that went biodegrade. So, just you did mention the figure. How much is the tax going up by?
The tax is going up by 1.98%. If I remember rightly, I was told that the maximum you can do it is by 2% at a time. So they've left it pretty tight by doing a 1.98%. But it's not just, of course, in North East Links. It's going up all over the place. Going up in Hull as well. And it's just in response to government
cutback from central government, give the money that they give to the local governments, isn't it?
Yeah.
What else have you found here?
So this is my personal favourite story of the week. it started off as a sort of local story and went national, even international, from the donut chain Krispy Kremes in Hull.
Yes.
They put up a poster of half-term activities, one of which was called the Krispy Kreme Club,
Right.
which they spelt the club with a K and shortened it to KKK Wednesdays.
It's just, I mean, how can they have done that? The reason it's controversial, of course, is KKK is most recognisable as the Ku Klux Klan, which is a bunch of sort of ex-slave-owning racists in the southern United States wandering around wearing hoods over their heads and burning crosses and lynching people. I mean, particularly revolting and horrible bunch of people.
A little bit different to Krispy Kremes.
It's not something that, well, exactly, it's not an association you want with your confectionery, is it? You've mentioned that they've spelt club with a K. They also spelt crispy and cream with a K. Why is it that these people can't spell?
I don't think they really intended to spell Krispy Kremes properly. I think it's why it's a unique brand name to remember.
Right. It's not easy to remember. It's not big and it's not clever. Clever spelt with a K as well. How can they have been so obtuse? How could they have been so ignorant as to not know that the KKK has a particular resonance? I
don't know. It's just mind-boggling, really, isn't it? That something like this would, I mean, Krispy Kremes must be a pretty big company. They're all over the world. They must have had someone that must have seen this and just gone, oh wait, this is not a good idea, but it went ahead anyway.
Just lift it up a little and let's have a look at that picture. There we are, donuts and coffee, KKK. What's the company's reaction been? I mean, there's clearly been complaint. How have they responded?
Yeah, well, they issued an apology and said they're going to change the name, which was in here. But I don't think they've actually changed it to anything else yet. I don't know.
Right. But okay, that's enough of that one. I think, given them far too much publicity anyway. Learn to spell. Never mind learning some history. What else have you got?
So we've got this thing that we actually did a little piece on earlier in the week about grassroots losing out at the KC. So obviously when the KC stadium was built, it was meant to be a community stadium so people could hire it out and use it for events. But obviously now it's basically just used for Hull City matches and Hull FC, I believe, matches. Right. The rugby club, I don't know the difference between the rugby clubs. But
have to ask Dan about all those details. But I mean, grassroots. Presumably there are grassroots, and there's a grass arena in the middle of the stadium. But why? What are people doing to get more involved? How is the community able to use the stadium a bit more?
Well, that's the thing, they're saying that the community aren't using the stadium. I think it's because the costs of using it are probably really, really high because, of course, Hull City are now a top-flight Premier League club and they've had to upgrade the stadium to meet all sorts of rules and regulations, and I think because of that, the cost of using the stadium have gone up so much that normal people just can't use it for anything, really, which is a bit of a shame.
Well, it's awful difficult to think of what you'd want to use a stadium for that seats, 40, 50,000 people, something like that. It's not really the right place for your Sunday afternoon kick around, is it?
Well, people use it for all sorts. I mean, there's plenty of conferences that take place there where people might do some sort of networking event, because obviously they have lots of, it's not just the stand and the pitch, they have lots of underside stuff as well, like storage rooms and like conference facilities and all that. So people obviously use them, but I don't know. You do have a bit of a point, I guess. I don't know what else you'd really use it for, but obviously kids' parties maybe.
Gladiators.
Gladiators.
Yeah, we don't have enough of them these days. What else have you found, Dave?
So another one we've got, obviously something that's been quite big in the national press as well over recent months, is the key to protecting children is in our communities.
Which paper is that in?
This is the Hull Daily Mail.
The Hull Daily Mail, yep.
Because obviously we've had the event in Rotherham, and some of the people who worked in Rotherham have worked at East Riding Council, and East Riding Council carried out an internal review into their sort of handling of child safeguarding.
Yep.
And this is what he's talking about. They're basically saying that people in the community should look out for these things a bit more.
Well, again, I mean, it's almost seems to be stating the obvious, doesn't it? Of course we should all be looking out for people committing horrendous crimes and doing something about it if we're aware of it. But I guess, it's useful to be reminded every now and then. Councillor says everyone must look out for exploitation. Well, fair enough.
I mean, you'd think people would be able to look out for it, but obviously, some people think that child abuse has become institutionalised, so maybe that's the reason. Maybe it's not as easy to spot as people think it is.
Well, perhaps, that institutionalisation is clearly what has gone on in the past in other parts of the country. One more story, Dave, just before we get to a break.
So this is something that we've also looked at before, the £1 million cost of saving lives. So Lives is the charity in Lincolnshire, which is sort of like an emergency response charity.
The Market Raisin Mail. I think James did a story about this a little while ago, didn't he?
He did indeed, yeah. And fun enough, his story was on how the charity has been struggling across Lincolnshire. I mean, obviously, in these times, people don't have much money anyway to donate to charities like this, but I think Lincolnshire itself presents unique challenges because obviously, you know, we see with things like Lincolnshire Police, you know, the county's huge.
Yep.
And it's on many rural places, and there's not enough people to cover all these rural places.
Sure.
There's travel costs and
Sure.
lots of things.
It's an excellent charity, of course, and it does sort of supplement the emergency services as they are. Dave, I'll be back in a minute with you. Please don't go away. You're watching Estuary TV News. A little later, we ask, where's the mayor? And Dan Kemp will bring you all the sports news. One of Lincolnshire's greatest sons, John Harrison, invented the marine chronometer and allowed navigation. He is to be honoured by a new display, officially launched on the 26th of this month. Born in the West Riding, he moved to the northern Lincolnshire village of Barrow upon Humber, and that's where new information boards have been put up to inform the people of the area just what impact he had on the history of Britain, the Empire and the world. Dan Kemp went to check them out.
Located in the Grand Holy Trinity Church in Barrow, these information boards have been erected to ensure the 18th century story of John Harrison remains alive.
We've summarised the problem and the approach that John Harrison took towards solving it. That's mainly the top boards that you can see. But we've also included a lot of the work that the children at the school did in researching the problems of longitude, researching the local history, the navigation that used to go on the Humber, things like that. And we've reproduced a lot of their work on the boards, the lower boards here.
And community involvement in the project is something that was central to its creation.
Called it the Longitude Project, and we worked over quite a long period with the primary school, which is called John Harrison School, and in particular with the Year 6 pupils. And they did a lot of work on the story. They actually wrote their own play.
And it's hoped that more tourists will be attracted to the area.
It is something which will attract tourists, people interested in maritime history. We have good links with the Maritime Museum in Greenwich, for instance, and we have contacted people abroad, including the author of Longitude, David Sobel, who've all been very supportive of what we're doing. And the exhibition here is part of that work.
Dan Kemp is Dave Nunn. I beg your pardon, Dave. Dave Nunn is still here to help me have a look at the papers.
I know that me and Dan look alike, but we're not that much alike.
I do apologise. I beg your pardon. You found a story about donkeys.
Yeah, so this is a pretty weird story. So apparently donkey operators are now set for criminal records checks on beaches, which is completely bizarre.
Well, I suppose the donkeys they're offering a service to children in some ways, at least for the duration of the ride of the donkey up and down the beach. They're in loco parentis, aren't they? I guess there's a certain logic to it, or is this just going too far?
I mean, people have been saying for years it would become too PC and too health and safety, and I think this is probably one of those things. I understand the logic behind it, but I think it's just maybe a bit too far.
Which paper was this in?
It's from the Market Raisin Mail.
Okay, and where are these donkeys and donkey handlers? That looks like Cleethorpes Beach, is it? But
it's just it says Mablethorpe Beach.
It's
a shot of a beach, yeah, but obviously, you know.
Is this who was it? I guess the Beadle in Oliver Twist said the law is a ass. I suppose that this is a law about donkeys. It does seem a bit prescriptive, doesn't it?
I guess so. But I guess with the last story we talked about before the break about protecting children in our communities, I guess this is a way of doing that almost.
I guess so, but it just seems sad to assume that anybody who's looking after those lovely animals is that you assume that they're guilty unless they can prove themselves innocent, which to some extent is what a CBR check is, isn't it?
Maybe that's part of the culture we live in now.
Perhaps it is.
Who knows?
Perhaps it is. What else?
So from the Cleethorpes Chronicle, we have this story which was actually here the other day, which is the £130 million growth deal signed in the Humber region the other day.
Absolutely, yes. There's a big event in Grimsby. Who was here?
We had the Greg Clark, who is the Minister for Cities, and we had all the leaders of the local councils, and I believe Martin Vickers was here as well.
As was Austin Mitchell.
Yeah, and Austin Mitchell, the cap again.
Various other candidates for the general election. I've been beginning to be able to recognise them at this point, Dave. So what does that mean for the area? What sort of investments
it means huge investments in everything from just sort of local community projects to sort of more bigger construction. I think it's a great thing. Yeah, obviously on the back of Siemens and the offshore wind, we've got this investment in the area. It's it's looking like good times for the local area.
And it's government money, is it?
Well, it's government money. Yeah, it's from the Department for Communities and Local Government, I believe.
And it's, I mean, maybe call me a political old cynic, but it seems awfully close to a general election for the government to be handing out goodies like this. Is it? Are they trying to butter us up and sweeten us up?
Well, I mean, you could say that, and some people probably will interpret it as that. I mean, there probably is a bit of it in there. Just before an election, the government announces £100 million worth of funding for a local area. People are going to be happy. But I think at the same time, on the back of all the investment that's been coming in here recently, I think it's just a reflection of that, really.
Well, we'll take it anyway, whatever the motives behind it. You've got one in the Louth Leader here?
Yeah, we have. So it's the story on the front page. We saw a chaotic scene of complete devastation. It's
Yes.
the story that's been on the local news about the dogs that got out and killed some sheep in a field.
Just hold it up a little bit.
Yeah.
There we go. We saw a chaotic scene of complete devastation. Family condemns dog owners after lethal attack on sheep. The Louth Leader there. It's very difficult, isn't it, to know what to do about dogs who misbehave.
Well, to be honest, they probably should be on leashes.
Yes, but you can't. I mean, a dog never out of the house other than on a leash. I mean, a dog never able to run free, take a dog for a walk, and always keep it on the end of a line. It seems very restrictive, a little bit rough.
It's true, but I mean, dogs are, I mean, we can domesticate dogs as much as we want, but at the end of the day, they will have, wild animal sort of tendencies, and those instincts might take over in certain instances, and that's obviously what's happened here, which is terrible. But I mean, obviously it's only been sheep in this case, but how long would it be before, say, a child might be attacked? You've got to think of these things.
Well, it's a bit the same. This is the same as the donkey handlers, isn't it? I mean, you can't assume that the dog's guilty before it's actually done something. I mean, this is sort of the argument here is that you're going to always keep dogs constrained just in case they happen to be villains. When so many dogs aren't. I don't know. Maybe a little bit paranoid.
Maybe, but I think as we say, we were talking about the society in which we live in. I think this is probably one of those cases really where this sort of thing happens.
You found a few things from the web as well.
Yeah, well, these are from the local papers. This from the web. So obviously we've got one from the Grimsby Telegraph, which is about the big oil drill that's appeared next to you. I know you have noticed it when I've been driving around, and it says, "We're not fracking in Grimsby."
Right. Okay. I haven't seen this drill. Whereabouts is it?
It's just after the Stallingborough interchange, or just before it. It's near around there, and you can see it's right by the edge of the road. It's pretty big. You can see the big crane and the drill in the background, and it's pretty large.
And it's a sort of a sign that, never mind all the renewable energy, which of course we all look forward to so much, that being the sort of great saving grace for this region, but we're still going for the old-fashioned oil and the fossil fuels and the gas just to tide us over until the...
Yeah, I mean, we have to have a transition before we switch to renewables. I mean, we can't just switch everything around in a day and instantly use all the renewable energy. So we have to use these old fossil fuels.
What else have you got? One very quick one, Dave.
So we've obviously got another one is about the Centrica power station closures. Another thing that ties into
sad, isn't it? Loss of
local
jobs.
energy. Yeah.
And I suppose those power stations just no longer necessary.
Well, I mean, with the falling price of energy and all the things like inflation.
No longer viable.
Yeah.
Must stop you there, Dave. Thank you very much for coming in.
No worries.
I want to know, where's the mayor? Specifically Sheila Finley, Mayor of Bridlington.
I'm Mayor of Bridlington, and I attend a range of civic events throughout the year. Events include charity fundraising, civic services, other mayors, civic dinners, networking, promoting Bridlington, opening events. And today I've attended 79 events. Many of the events I'm accompanied by the Bridlington Town Crier, David Hind. Over the next month I'll be attending a treadmill challenge in aid of dementia awareness. We've obviously got the Tour de Yorkshire event, which everyone's really excited about. And that next week we're going to have an event at the Spa, asking businesses to get involved with the event in May. I have a further education award in by East Riding College. Again, that's to be held at the Bridlington Spa, which is a fantastic venue to celebrate the achievements of our young people. And I've got a great event coming up, which is presenting prizes to Bridlington Free Press Sports Awards for services to the community and outstanding achievements, which is a great event to attend. We've got the Women's Day of Prayer, which is going to be held at the St John's Burlington Church. This event is held every year in different locations, and it's a lovely event to celebrate womankind. And the weekend of the 7th and 8th of March, I'll be attending civic dinners, civic services around the region. We have an exciting event coming up where we have 2 Bridlington schools who take on the Rock Challenge. Hildersthorpe Primary School, where I'm a governor, will be dancing their hearts out on Wednesday the 11th of March, and our senior school, Headlands, will be battling it out on Tuesday the 10th, with lots of other schools from around Hull and the region, East Riding. I also am going to be doing an event on Friday the 13th for my chosen charity, RSPC Bridlington branch, who do wonderful work, and they're holding a stall in the Promenade Shopping Centre in Bridlington. And on the 13th of March, I will also be doing the big sleep out in aid of Sash Charity, run by the Hinge Centre, and that's going to be on Priory Green. So I'm looking forward to that.
And Dan Kemp's back with the sport.
We've got a huge weekend of sport coming up with all our football teams featuring in close games. Hull City have a proverbial 6-pointer tomorrow as they host Queen's Park Rangers. The Tigers sit 1 point and 1 place above their opponents, who are hovering above the drop zone by goal difference. City expect to be able to welcome back Mohamed Diame for the first time since December. Scunthorpe United travel to Preston North End. Both sides are now vying for a place in the end-of-season playoffs, with the hosts in 4th place and the Iron are only 5 points adrift of the playoffs. And we'll hear from Mark Robbins shortly. Grimsby Town are at Conference Premier leaders Barnet in their pursuit of the Football League. The Mariners have a 5-point cushion in the playoffs, but sides chasing have games in hand. And in perhaps the most momentous game of the lot, North Ferriby United are playing in the FA Trophy semi-final, first leg against Bath. The Villagers are just a 2-legged tie from Wembley, with the return leg at the Eon Visual Media Stadium a week tomorrow. Back to Mark Robbins. He believes that the feeling around the club is on a high, having picked up around 2 points per game since he joined as manager.
You can feel momentum building, you can feel the supporters getting more and more excited. The players are in good form. They're playing in a decent way, or a way that's getting us good performances, which in turn is giving us some decent results and the chances of decent results. So this week's been a good week for us. We just want to maintain that.
The Hull Stingrays have a Scottish double-header on the push for Elite League playoffs. The Rays are at the Fife Flyers on Saturday evening and remain in Scotland to face the Edinburgh Capitals on Sunday night. Don't hesitate to get in touch if you've got any sports stories that you may want to share with us. That's all for the sport.
That's all we have time for, I'm afraid. If you have a story, then you know where the details are and how to get in touch with us. Until next week, good evening.
Hello and welcome to Estuary TV's weather. Sunny spells are expected Saturday with well-scattered showers developing. These will likely be wintry, especially over hills, feeling chilly in the northwesterly wind, turning frosty during the evening and a maximum temperature of 5 degrees. Becoming wet and windy on Sunday with hill snow at first, clearing to showers later.